All right, so shout out to all my students. Recently I've had some student feedback, and some of my students have said, like, why are you posting all this, activism and stuff like that? Because I just posted a research project that I did on blackface, celebrity blackface, and how it relates to the entertainment industry and why DJs, experience a glass ceiling and things like that. Now, in the news, if you've noticed, diversity training has just been banned in the U.S. and within the government spheres, diversity training. So, to my students that are having a problem with me posting historical things, historical videos, social study videos, current events, my words to you all is, you can unsubscribe and go somewhere else if you have a problem with world history. If it offends you, if world history actually offends you, and you think it's like activism by just talking about the history of blackface or the history of things that affect people in the hip hop community, then please unsubscribe and go to 4chan, 8chan. There's a lot of places you guys can go. But I'm here at TTM Academy. We're teaching our students not only turntablist sciences, rap sciences, mathematics sciences. We're also teaching knowledge of self, other things that relate to hip hop, history, social studies. All right, so today's a lecture about Jessica Krug, and we're going to talk about not just Jessica Krug and her story, but we're going to talk about the greater ramifications of the Jessica Krug story. Shout out to Lauren, that's in the house. Shout out to everybody that's in the house, everybody that's in the room. And yeah, so like I was saying before with my students, I had a student come to me and say, like, why are you posting all these videos that are political and da-da-da, I got people saying all lives matter, with all the Q-word stuff, coming at me and stuff. So once again, I'm just saying, please, if you have a problem with people talking about, race issues and things like that, you can, go somewhere else. You can go to 8chan. All right. So yeah, so let's start this up. So today's lecture is about Jessica Krug, and we're going to watch a bunch of videos. We're going to do some analysis on this whole situation. Now, so let's start with, we're going to start with her accent. For those who don't know, Jessica Krug is a scholar, a former teacher at George Washington University. And she just got exposed for lying her whole career that she was a black woman, that she was an Afro-Latina black woman, and she just got caught. So we're gonna play this video clip right now. Enough of me. So first we're gonna start with this. We're gonna look at her accent. I'm
Jessica Bombalera. I'm here in El Barrio, East Harlem. You probably know this neighborhood because the Hosanna Melissa Mark Viverito, who used to be the speaker of your city council, sold my fucking neighborhood to developers and gentrifiers. So I got a couple of things to say, and when y'all come on and tell me my time stops, fuck out of here. It's been 7 hours. Not only did I have to listen to these cops, and not just the cops, but to be honest with y'all, city council members, you posing like you opposing them for your sound bites, for your social media, for your re-election campaigns. Fuck out of here. You've been supporting the cops in the pandemic when the MTA was strapped and you supported putting more cops on the MTA. Fuck out of here. We know where you're coming from, and we know what these little photo opportunity bullshits are.
All right, so you see that, you've seen the articles, you've heard about her, and for those that don't know, I'm going to flip to her accent right here. This is her actual accent.
For the present, it's oftentimes either in kind of like a live action role playing thing.
Right, so that's her actual accent. All right, so I'm going to go to her in her own words, what she wrote. So this is what she wrote. She said, this is her post. Some of her students, see what happened was some of her students were about to expose her. They're asking her questions and she felt that they were catching on to her. So what she did was she exposed herself before her students could expose her. All right, so we're gonna go. This is gonna be a full investigation. Hopefully this is gonna be short. Hopefully it's gonna be less than an hour. So yeah, so the truth and the anti-black violence of my lies. For the better part of my adult life, every move I made, every relationship I've formed has been rooted in the napalm toxic soil of lies. This is her own words. To an not just any lies, to an escalating degree of my adult life, I have eschewed my living experience as a white Jewish child in suburban Kansas under various assumed identities within a blackness that I had no right to claim. First, North African blackness, then U.S.-rooted blackness, then Caribbean-rooted Bronx blackness. I have not only claimed these identities as my own when I had absolutely no right to do so, when doing so is the very epitome of violence, of thievery and appropriation, of the myriad of ways in which non-black people continue to use and abuse black identities and cultures. But I have formed intimate relationships with loving, compassionate people who have trusted and cared for me when I have deserved neither trust nor caring. People have fought together with me and have fought for me, and my continued appropriation of Black Caribbean identity is not only it's not only in the starkest terms wrong, unethical, immoral, and anti-Black and colonial, but that means that every step I've taken has gaslighted those whom I love, making those people feel crazy. That's what gaslighted is. For those who don't know, gaslighting is if you're trying to make somebody think that they're crazy. So shout out to Sylvie in the house. So for those who don't know, gaslighting is making somebody think that they're crazy or something like that. So, I've had a number of friends that actually interacted with her, and I think I probably interacted with her at one point. But, so I'm going to read some of their testimonials and stuff like that too. But I'm going to finish, what she's saying first. All right. Intention never matters more than impact. To say that I clearly have been battling some unaddressed mental health demons for my entire life as both an adult child and an child is obvious. Mental health issues likely explain why I assumed a false identity initially as a youth and why I continued and developed it for so long. The mental health professionals from whom I have been so belatedly seeking help assure me that this is a common response to some of the severe trauma that marked my early childhood and teen years. So, a lot of people say if a kid has some extreme traumatic things happen to them, what will happen is, they'll, through disassociation, they'll cut off and form a new identity. So like multiple personalities and things like that usually come out of like a form of trauma. But this wasn't a multiple personality. This was her being a opportunist, a capitalist. So I'm not going to let her get off with the insanity plea. All right, so let's go back to right here, the original thing. We're going to listen to her doing this fake Bronx accent.
I also want to call out all these white New Yorkers who waited 4 hours with us to be able to speak and that did not yield their time to Black and brown indigenous New Yorkers who thought that their sense of, I thought cops was here to protect us, but I guess they're not. Boy, you think that this sort of like shock and empathy thing is the move. Okay, so a couple of things. You was talking about moving against the gang database. What's up with that? Because last I checked, that's still operating. Last I checked, that's still up. You talk about us to show up, been shown up in all these neighborhood council meetings trying to fight gentrification.
So she's for those who are just tuning in, this is a Jewish American woman from Middle America who has lied her whole career saying that she's a Black woman, and this is her doing a fake accent.
Ain't nothing changed. And then real quick, I want to talk about some of my experiences in the Bronx on Thursday. So, y'all heard from a few people who were there, and thank you. Much power to all my siblings who were standing up, my Black and brown siblings who were standing.
All right. I never heard any Black person say Black siblings when they say brothers and sisters. All right, so let's click to where this is her actual accent.
Future. So it's historical.
Yeah, exactly right. She needs to be held accountable for her lies. That's exactly what you said is exactly right. She needs to be, not only sued, but maybe arrested, all types of stuff. This woman, she got scholarships. She got grants from the Schomburg. She got scholarships. She got, she's been paid. She's tenured. I think she's a doctorate. It's crazy. All this based on lies. But what the thing about this is we're not just exposing her with this. We're going to be going into the Black Belay. We're going to be going into, Egyptomania and just the kind of a brief history of Caucasian people, be they Christian, Jewish, Muslim, trying to steal black culture and trying to steal black identity, stealing black birthrights, stealing, like for those who are watching Lovecraft Country, stealing black birthrights. All these things are part of this, because most of the bloggers and stuff like you see that are going to talk about her, they're just exposing the story. We all know the story and what happened, but we're going to be going into a little bit deeper, a lot deeper, and going into how this would happen, and like how would all these black people within the Africana studies and hip hop studies not catch under her after all these years. It was some students that actually caught on, right? So we're gonna flip back. So this is her talking regular.
It's also forward-looking, and at the same time, it's critical of the language within which a lot of conversations about, as this panel is entitled, diasporic politics happen in the present. Particularly, I'm interested in thinking about this idea that I'm borrowing from Puerto Rican sociologist Isar Godro, talking about folklorization of blackness, right? But the folklorization particularly of resistance and fugitivity. And by that I mean that oftentimes when people think about a historical politics of marronage or of resistance, it's very romantic, right? And when people think about the implications of that for the present, it's oftentimes either in kind of like a live action role-playing things. We should all put on berets because, Panthers. Or it just seems impossible. Well, people could do that in Haiti in the 1760s, but nowadays. So I'm interested in critiquing that a little bit. One, because it's critically urgent that we do so, right? The degree to which we remain invested in role-playing the past.
Role-playing, so now we're going to go back. Speaking of role-playing, ironic, right? This is her role-playing.
Right? It was led by a group called Decolonize This Place. The NYPD is a colonial occupation force. Let's be real honest. Y'all know they're being trained by the IDF. They are trained in counterinsurgency methods. It is not a surprise or shock that they are using counterinsurgency methods against us in the Bronx, black and brown people, right? And what happened? Saying they have no mask goes beyond that. They were spitting, coughing, and sneezing on us directly and saying, I have COVID, right? Kettled us before the curfew, beating and shoving us, inducing panic attacks, old people, children, caught up, people in the neighborhood being...
All right, so we're gonna flip back. So yeah, so that's just showing, she's got these two alter egos, like her regular self, then she's got this, this personality that she created, right? But the thing is, that's not anything new. We know, everybody knows about Dolezal, and we all know about Sean King, people like that. But when you go farther and farther back, who here knows about the Dawes rolls, right? So we're gonna go to the Dawes rolls really quick, and this is when this still affects today. The Dawes rolls were when Caucasian people were faking like they were natives, that they were Native Americans, be they Asiatic Indian Native Americans or Black Native Americans, Asiatic Black Native Americans, Pacific Black Native Americans, there's all different types of Native Americans, right? Melting pot of Native Americans that were already here when the Caucasian settlers from Europe arrived here. So the Dawes rolls were, to make people official, like, hey, you're an official Native American. And the people that got on the rolls, a lot of times people would pay $5 to get on the rolls, and we call them $5 Indians, right? And so there's a lot of, you can research $5 Indians, so she's kind of like aligned with this kind of, history of white theft of black, not just physical property, but intellectual property, and theft of just black culture, theft of everything, just stealing, right? All right. So this is just, you can research this yourself. I'll probably put a link in here. But yeah, so the Dawes rolls, it's nothing new what she's been doing. I'm going to go back a little bit farther. We're going to go back to this is another thing. She's on the end of the spectrum of the academia, so she's at like the highest level. But if you go all the way even to the lowest level in the terms of as far as I'm talking about like the highest level, like intellectual stuff, things that are dealing with the brain. Even if you go to the lowest level and you go to Instagram and you go to Daquan just got outed for also not being black and promoting, you know, ratchet black memes and tropes and all these things that people are used to seeing. So this guy, the owner of IG, Daquan, revealed as non-black after selling 85 million. He sold his site for 85 million. So for those who don't know who Daquan is, Daquan, let me go to Twitter. Let's see. Oh, that's the wrong Twitter. I don't have his Twitter loaded up, but let me go back to this Daquan thing. But yeah, so he sold his Twitter page for 85 million. And if you go to his Twitter page, let me see. I'm going to actually go to his Twitter page. I'm going to put Daquan. Let's see. So Instagram/Daquan. If you go to his Instagram page, right, he sold it for 85 million, but he had 15 million followers, and he was nonstop posting, you know, it's like, oh, black people getting their hair cut and just things, you know, making fun of black culture or just, you know, and the thing is that, you know, yeah, he should be, you know, people should be able to do that, but he was actually fronting like he was black. He never showed his face the whole time. All right, so, you know, we're just getting a little background. You know, we can go all the way even back to Egypt, right? If you're going to Egypt, I'm gonna pull up some Egyptian stuff, right? So you can see, like, right here, they're trying to whitewash Egypt. I just typed in the colors. I have forgotten which was north and south, like the colors of the crown, whether it was white or black. And I was researching that, and look, they make the Egyptians Caucasian, right? So we're faced with nonstop whitewashing of everything that's black, right? Because, you know, history, once you go back beyond 55,000 years, everything is black. Once you go back beyond, you know, about 7,000 years, you know, Caucasian people didn't even exist at that time. So, you know, all this stuff is kind of like blasphemous. You know, it's anti-black. And she even admitted she was anti-black, right? So, you know, so let me go to this other stuff. So now we're getting into the Black Boule. And so the question remains is you know, I've been in some of these conferences before where it's like, oh, you know, there's a lot of, you know, Africana studies people and all these people, black intellectuals and you know, people that look like her from you know, all the way to people that are dark skinned, you know, and a lot of times in these circles, they're letting the lighter skinned people, the people that are mixed, or the people that look like her that just totally look Caucasian, they're letting them be the, you know, the leaders of these or the heads of these councils or the moderators or just the controllers of everything. So clearly we can see that black studies are being puppeteered by Caucasians, right? She was you know, was at George Washington University, and she was teaching her students and telling her students that she was a black woman. She's been telling everybody she's a black woman this whole time. All right, so how could that happen? How, you know, because obviously there's other black professors she's met with and debated with. Why is it that none of them wanted to research who she was or even thought something was weird or off? Why is it only her, like, woke students or whatever that were on her trail and were about to expose her, and then she exposed herself? Well, we're going to go into that right now. We're going to go into Sigma Pi Phi. For those who don't know who Sigma Pi Phi is, Sigma Pi Phi, founded in 1904, was created to be kind of like the black hand of like the Skull and Bones, or, you know, the Yale Skull and Bones Society that runs a lot of things in the world. Not everything, but certain things they run. But as far as black intellectuals and black doctors, lawyers, the majority of all black doctors and lawyers are all part of the Divine Nine, which even Kamala Harris is part of it. She's an AKA. The AKA are part of the Divine Nine. And the Divine Nine are a branch of Sigma Pi Phi. Sigma Pi Phi is kind of like the original one. And they're a branch, and they're committed to keeping black people behind while keeping the black intellectual, rich doctor, lawyer caste on top. So their goal is to, you know, so they're the ones that implemented the paper bag tests and things like that, and promote colorism and brainwashing and promote, you know, and black women perming their hair and getting weaves and giving lace fronts and stuff like that, and assimilating into white society and making, you know, so this is basically like the white hand of the Skull and Bones Society. I mean, the black hand of the Skull and Bones Society. All right, so we're going to listen to Brother Baba Steve Coakley, All right. I just found out that this is something interesting to look at too. This is George Washington's teeth, right? Just to ascertain that, you know, she's teaching at George Washington University, but, you know, George Washington was a slave owner, and he, you know, raped black women, and he plucked their teeth out and used it for his own teeth. If you see these teeth right here, you can't, oh, you say I'm getting blocked? Listen, I can't see how to watch your live. Maybe they're blocking it. I can't see. Are you live right now? Yeah, I'm live right now, but you know, it'll be back up. So yeah, these are George Washington's teeth. He actually plucked these from living slaves, living enslaved people, you know, prisoners of war, people that he captured. And when the Revolutionary War, they say he let his slaves go, his enslaved people. But the thing is that, you know, these are all, his mouth was full of, you know, he's a sick person. You know, this is like satanic, you know, that he's got plucked teeth from men and women in his mouth, right? So that's George Washington University. But let's go to Steve Coakley. I'm going to find Steve Coakley right here. All right, so this is Steve Coakley. We're going to go to, for those who don't know what the Black Belay is, Steve is going to explain it. He's the foremost authority in the world, and he passed away. Some people believe the Belay might have actually killed him. Let's see.
It's because we have been talking for a while, and we have now stepped forward to have a discussion known as Sigma Pi Phi, acronym the Belay.
Wait, I'm going to rewind this back.
The Belay, acronym.
I'm going to rewind this.
Brother Omar, I need something grapey or lemonade. Yes, it's acting like we just got here together. Many people will see the tape and the videotape, wonder why everybody was so lightly greeting each other. It's because we have been talking for a while. And we have now stepped forward to have a discussion about the black male secret society known as Sigma Pi Phi, acronym the Belay, B-O-U-L-E. We will do our best to show you the information related to the Belay. That's what this lecture is about. I could give the entire lecture and quote every inch of the documentation without looking at it. I know them that well. But this is my responsibility, my night, to show you the information so that you can look at it with me and double affirm the fact that much of our black press, as much as we like it, has not been honest in talking about this group of black men, or they respect it very highly and never speak negatively against it. We also know that we've had many black people who've been a member of it and have never, ever broken the code or the creed and spoken to one who was a non-member. Though they pledge and swear that their goal is to represent you, you will have a hard time believing it when they don't even seek to let you know that they who help you are. And so, in July 17th, 1990, July 18th, 1990, the Los Angeles Times did a front-page story on the left column about elite fraternity of black men. Excuse me, brother. I should go. I saw that one get away. I just shaved myself. I stand back here. This elite fraternity of black men were described in the article as being influential, as being somewhat like Skull and Bones at Yale. And as it said these things, I was a little in awe, as the others, the brothers in African Minds United and the Coalition Against Black Exploitation, as we all were intrigued by the fact that this group of men could have been in existence and we not know about them. And even other brothers and sisters. I remember talking to a brother who had been National Executive Secretary of Sigma, Phi Beta Sigma, been in fraternity land 37 years, had heard nothing of the Belay ever, though its founder had been a member.
All right, I'm going to pause it right there, and I'm going to come back to Steve Coakley. So to tie this in, you know, I've been at some of these circles before, you know, like academic circles and conferences. It'll be like hip-hop academic conferences and things like that. And, I'll step to people and be like, hey, look, you know, I invented a system of notation for DJ music called the turntablist transcription methodology. Look, check this out. It's the fastest growing, you know, music notation around the world. And I get blank stares. People look at me like, you know, they'll look at me like robots, like, oh, wow, that's very cool. Okay. And I'm on to, they don't even care. It's nothing interesting to them. Like, hip hop DJs using, scratch notation has no interest in these people in these academic circles. And I'm just like, huh, why is that? Why is it that, you know, the academic world, you know, it's people that are in their home bedrooms that are into what I'm doing, but the people that are giving lectures on positive hip hop and all that type of stuff, that whole academic world, they don't care. They're not receptive. And then I found out about the Belay and you know Steve Coakley's work and stuff like that. I had met Steve Coakley when I was a child. Shout out to Vincent Knox for introducing me to Steve Coakley when I was a kid. And but you know, I didn't realize I had even met him as a kid. You know. But, you know, so he was the one that exposed the whole society, and a lot of people say he was kidnapped by the Belay, possibly, and they did some weird medical stuff on him. You can research that on your own. All right, so I'm going to flip back around. But yeah, what I'm talking about is the fact that, you know, the way this relates to my institution, TTM Academy, is that, you know, there's obviously a glass ceiling within the academic world as far as hip hop is concerned, African studies, even Black Native American studies. You know, everything is a lot of things are censored, you know, and a lot of things are very stagnant. So what Steve Coakley is talking about is that the Black Belay Society was created by racist Caucasian people to keep the Black academic world in a stagnant plane, in a stagnant colorist, you know, pro caste system world, you know. So everybody knows the AKAs. They used to all right, so the AKAs, Kamala's own fraternity, used to actually, you know, or use the paper bag test, where if your skin was darker than a paper bag, you weren't allowed in the club. So this is what Steve is talking about. He's talking about this elite. And I don't know if anybody in the house was ever involved in Jack and Jill, but you could even call Jack and Jill as like almost a youth group. Like a youth group of that, you know, like you know, they're cultivating young Black Belay, you know, kind of brainwashed, you know, Greek frat people that are going to rule over the rest of the Black class and keep the rest of the Black majority kind of impoverished, and while they can be rich and benefit from white supremacy. So that's kind of what it is. It's kind of that's what he's talking about. So we're going to go back to Steve Coakley.
And so, as we began to talk about it with other people around the country, we began to realize that people didn't know about it. How you doing, Brother Warren? And not knowing that people didn't know about it, we just assumed that it was incidental, that everybody must know something about it, and that it was not mysterious or connected to all of those other things we had previously been talking about, like Cecil Rhodes and Baron de Rothschild and all the Halls of Hades, the ADL and the Diamond Jewish Connection. We've been talking about the Trilateral Commission, who is responsible for this economic summit that you'll be seeing on TV the next 3-4 days. You need to know that. Anybody? Carl Rowan came on the radio right here in LA. And my friends jumped him, because we jumping them in every city. And when they jumped him, he said the Trilateral Commission ain't done nothing. But the Trilateral Commission went to the president and had him set up the annual economic summit starting in '76, France. So when you listen to how your destiny of your country, they say, rides on that meeting, you wonder how Warren could make such an allegation. But knowing as a Belay in Washington, D.C. Epsilon chapter, his goal is to never speak of the high, white, and mighty, whom the Belay, all 3,300, are sworn to protect. Yes, these brothers that we are pushing up against the wall have taken a sworn oath that they will never expose the whites that they know actually run the world.
So what he's talking about when people talk about the 1%, he's talking about like a Black 1% kind of that rules over the other Black 99%, and dictates everything. So you wonder why, like, hey, why is BET uncut? Why did they just fire Tavis Smiley and BET Uncut is playing, you know, strip club porno music all night, you know? And that was, you know, Viacom bought it, and, you know, they have plans, you know. So, you know, this Jessica Krug thing is a very, very much bigger issue. And right now I'm talking about the people that enabled her to even get to that place, not just the people, the obvious racist institution at George Washington University. I just showed that George Washington had actual, you know, teeth of people he tortured and enslaved. Like he was a, you know, maniacal, evil person, right? And so, you know, there's not any kind of question about, you know, there's no wonder why the people in her university helped her get up there. But I'm talking about why black people were not questioning her. The black intellectuals, the black academia weren't questioning her. They're not questioning her because a lot of them are, their brains are totally empty. Like they're just kind of following whatever they're kind of their not just their masters, but really more so their archons. And for those who don't know, you can look up the word archon. You know, their archons and their abbots or whoever their leaders are that are telling them to, you know, do certain things, or their frat leaders or whoever. All right. So we're going to flip back. Now we're going to go to the young black teenagers. We're going to come back to Coakley, but I'm kind of laying the groundwork for the psychology behind all of this. So let me see where okay, here's young black teenagers. So for those who don't know, there was a group in the 90s, maybe it was the early 90s, maybe this was, early 90s, called the Young Black Teenagers. And this kind of goes to show, this is kind of along the same lines of, you know, Shaun King, Dolezal's. You know, this isn't a new thing. There's always been infiltration into of people claiming to be black and just kind of trying to mess people's heads up, right? Because this group is called the Young Black Teenagers, but there's no black teenagers in the group, right? So I'm going to press play.
This is the Young Black Teenagers. So Brother Cameron, what's up, man? What's up? Introduce yourself. Tell me now.
And before I start this, as far as you know, hip hop culture, little connection. All right, as far as hip hop culture is concerned, I'm not dissing people for coming into it. Like, you know, like for me, you know, if a Caucasian person wants to get braids, it's like, hey, get braids, whatever. You know, get dreadlocks, whatever. But you know, once somebody starts fronting and say like, oh, they're black, and they get braids, then it's like, yo, that's a bigger thing. So, you know, if somebody's, you know, Caucasian and they're acting, you know, and their homies are black and they act like that and that's part of the culture, yeah, whatever. That's part of their cult. That's how they act. You know, but it's about when they start saying that they're black and they start lying and stuff like that and start tricking people, right? And that's what young black teenagers were kind of doing, right? So I'm gonna press play.
I'm Crush, firstborn. AJ, what's up? DJ Krug. Cool. Nice to meet you.
So we're laying the groundwork for the psychology behind this, like.
So, how did you guys? Come on. The Young Black Teenagers? Young Black Teenagers. Now, you know I wasn't expecting that. Like, when I saw, like, the video and all, and I'm like, yo, these guys are white. And they call themselves the Young Black Teenagers.
Well, white to go on.
Okay, why is that?
First of all, you know what I'm saying, society does people as black and white. They dub Caucasians as white and African Americans as black. Well, let's look at black and white. You know what I'm saying? This is black. You know what I'm saying? This is white. I've never seen anybody's skin color match as black and white. You know what I'm saying? Blackness to me is more of a cultural thing, a state of awareness, a state of mind. You know what I'm saying? Depends on how you interpret the word black. You can interpret the word black in many different ways. You know what I'm saying? Us growing up in New York, you know what I'm saying? We grew up in New York, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to get specific on where everybody was brought up at, but between the Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island area. When I mean Long Island, I mean a Hempstead, Freeport, Roosevelt area where Public Enemy originated from. You know, I personally grew up with Hank and Chuck and all them before Public Enemy came out. You know, growing up in a community that's majority of mostly, you know what I'm saying, African Americans, you tend to adapt to a culture, you know what I'm saying? Now you take a look at the hip-hop culture, which is an African-American culture, because African-Americans started the whole hip-hop culture. But the hip-hop culture is a culture within its own. It's a street culture, alright? Like, for example, let's look at this jam on the album that I wrote for Daddy Called Me Nigga Because I Like to Survive. Now, first people would think, you know, since they're already looking at the group as so-called a white group, since white is the stereotype as Caucasians.
Alright, so I don't know if y'all just heard that. This guy was just asking him about this group, and he automatically jumped to one of his tracks where he says the N-word. And he's like, Daddy called me an N-word, blah, 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 or whatever, you know, and then he starts, so we're going to see him explain why he uses the N-word or whatever, you know. So let's...
Throughout history, you know what I'm saying? They look at us as a white group, you know what I'm saying? And if using the word daddy call me nigga, then it doesn't just go from my father being Caucasian calling me a nigga because I'm into a street culture. I have a lot of brothers that I roll with since I was young, that just because they're in the same culture, in the same state of mind that I am, their father calls them nigga too. So you know what I'm saying? It's just the word nigga being used again in a negative way. That's why the word nigga should just be abolished out of vocabulary. See, the young black teenagers isn't five Caucasians.
But meanwhile, he's saying it over and over again.
We represent a new movement, a race without a color, you know what I'm saying? the hip-hop culture.
So a new movement, but also what he's talking about is trans race. He's saying that, you know, hey, I can be black, you can be black, as long, you know, they're talking about trans race. You know, this is an early example of being trans race, right? They're like, hey, I can be anything I want to be, right? You know? All right, so now we're gonna flip back and see a little bit more what he has to say.
The hip-hop culture, the youth of today, the youth of hip-hop today are young black teenagers. See what I'm saying? Has nothing to do with a skin color. It's a race without a color.
So he's saying young black teenagers have nothing to do with skin color. All right, okay. All right, so let me, now we're gonna flip back to, we're gonna flip over here. Let's see. So this is, you know, if you haven't heard of General Seti, you should definitely check out his lectures. He's got some cool lectures. But he was just originally doing a lecture about, this was, I think they were talking about maybe King Tut and the whitewashing of King Tut. Like, this is an actual statue that was created during his dynasty, and the person was looking at his face, and it was actually created by him. And then this is the whitewashing of him. Right, and this is like a kind of a map, a zone of, like, you know, different. This is a modern zone of what people look like in a lot of the places now, not what it was like way back. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click over to here. Let's see. I'm gonna click over. All right, because no, let's go to right here. All right, so you know, this is another example. We've got, you know, I did this in my last lecture. I talked about Virginia Woolf. She was impersonating a black, she was impersonating Egyptian royalty, right? She was impersonating, this is Virginia Woolf right here. Everybody that grew up on Virginia Woolf, that's her right there, impersonating a black man, right? Just like Krug is impersonating a black woman, this is Virginia Woolf, a very famous author. So this is just to ascertain that this is not a new thing, right? This is not a new thing. It's been happening for hundreds of years. It's been happening for thousands of years. You know, you can even talk about, you know, the holy books and all that stuff, and a lot of black religions being co-opted by non-black people, whether it's Christianity, you know, Hebrews, all types of stuff. You know, Islam, everything is always being co-opted by whether it's Caucasians from that are Christians or Muslims or, you know, all different religions, right? So it's nonstop. Everybody's stealing from us and impersonating us. Even if you want to take it to all the protests and all the you know, the people that are faking like they're Black Lives Matter and they're, you know, Caucasian, and they're rioting and smashing windows and trying to hurt people and stuff like that. So causing chaos. You know, this is not a, you know, what I'm showing is that this is not an outlier. That Krug is not like, oh, she's just some outlier. It's a culture. It's a culture. You know, part of white supremacy is assuming the identity of black people. That's part of white supremacy. So that's what I'm showing through this lecture, right? And the Black Belay is complicit with that. They help that. All right. So let's listen to a little bit more of her faking her accent.
Dispersal method. How the fuck you gonna gas people when they're hemmed in? On top of cars, beating down on people's heads, zip tying us to the points where our hands was turning purple, having us on the bus. And guess what happens when we get in there?
Notice how she said our hands was turning purple, but normally when she talks, she would say my hands were turning purple.
Instead of using political imagination to dream forward is the degree to which we remain inevitably entangled in a violence from which we can't possibly conceive of an escape, right? I'm also interested in thinking about this because of some of the really puzzling developments. I can't even call them developments. That's not accurate. I'm thinking about the ways that within the academia and within a lot of black politics, we can often ascribe to nationalisms that have never one time served black freedom, right? So the latest incarnation of this, I would say, is the kind of puzzling way in which Cornel West has signed on to the American descendant of enslaved people discourse, right? And the ways in which oftentimes like an African Americanist project that's really about the Americanism is at odds with thinking about Black political thought globally. So hopefully that...
All right, so do you notice she's coming for a criminal arrest? So that's part of what she was doing too. Not only was she faking that she was being black, she was actually coming for people, and we're going to go into some of my Facebook friends like Erica and different people's interactions with her. I'm going to show some actual testimonials of people that actually interacted with her, right? And but if you notice, look at her eye when she talks about Cornell Rest. I'm going to rewind that. Look at her left eye kind of
Black political thought globally. So hopefully that'll make a little bit more sense. Is at odds with thinking about Black political thought globally.
Look at her left. Look at this eye. Watch.
I'm also interested in thinking about a politics of silence, right? And how we conceive of diaspora. In my work, in my understanding, diaspora has never been and is never about origins, right? A nation state has never been...
All right, so never about origins, right? You see what she's doing, like... but notice on the Cornel West thing, she did this weird, like, her eye twitch. You know, because sometimes when people are lying and, you know, you can see there's facial things, facial cues that you can see that they're either lying or they're being shady or something's weird or something's off. You know, she's got those things in her face. You can see that she's crazy. She's a crazy person, right? She's a crazy Machiavellian, sociopathic, you know, white supremacist that's running Black cultural studies and teaching Black cultural studies, right? So it makes you wonder, it's like, you know, is she an agent? Is she working for Putin? You know, is there, you know, and that's a whole other thing I'll bring up in the future. Like, is there actual Russian intervention within hip hop? Russian intervention within hip hop? You know, is there a Russian presence? Is there, you know, is the Kremlin saying like, hey, you know, if we can, you know, because, you know, the Kremlin was caught, you know, creating all types of fake blogs, Black conscious blogs, and all these things like that. So if they're creating Black conscious blogs, why wouldn't they, you know, fund somebody like her? And I heard she actually has a sickle and hammer, a tattoo on her arm, I believe, or somewhere. She might. I heard her students, one of her students, say that she has a tattoo of that. But yeah, let's flip back. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up pretty soon. All right, so yeah, I was just showing that this is bigger than just her, right? This is a much bigger issue. All right, so we're gonna pull up some more examples. All right, so we're gonna right here we have Ann Pasternack. Right, there was people protesting. You know, I came at Ann Pasternack years ago. I was you know, calling out the Kara Walker mammy stuff. This stuff right here, right? So this is Ann Pasternack. She had a Black woman named Kara Walker build the biggest stereotype that's ever been built in Williamsburg, and a bunch, you know, Caucasian people were laughing at it. I was there in one of the openings, and you can see from the back, it's like, this is like her genitals exposed and stuff like that. And this was the largest sculpture of a Black woman in the Western Hemisphere, and she made it a mammy. And this was funded all by Caucasian people, built by Caucasian people, though drafted by a Black woman, right? So they used it as an excuse to get away with racism, right? Now, Ann Pasternack, actually, she when she became the president of the Brooklyn Museum, she appointed a Caucasian curator as the head of the African art curation department. So I'm just, you know, laying the groundwork that it's not just, these aren't outliers. This is you know, and it's not just some weird conspiracy, whatever, even though conspiracy really just means conspire or to plan, right? And people plan, you know, if you're trying to dominate somebody, you plan how to dominate them, right? And if it's not out of passion. Oh, shout out to everybody coming in the house. All right, so yeah, so I'm showing here that Ann Pasternack is on the same tip, right? So people were protesting, right? So Ann Pasternack, let me type Ann Pasternack on here so y'all can see what she looks like. I'm gonna type Ann Pasternack. So I'm gonna type, oops, there we go, Ann Pasternack. All right, so this is Ann Pasternack, all right? This is her right here, all right? That's Ann Pasternack, and she is responsible for this. She's responsible for this giant mammy. This giant mammy that has the genitals exposed and just a giant, you know, Sphinx stereotype. And remember, this is anti-Kemetic. For those who don't know, you know, anti-Kemetic is being anti, you know, Black, anti-Egyptian, right? This is a sacred, you know, the Sphinx is a sacred, you know, a sacred icon within Kemetic culture, Kemetic religions, Kemetic circles, and we have this blasphemy of it. Like imagine if somebody drew a giant biblical figure and made her butt naked and did that, people would object. But black people don't object. I was here, and all the, a lot of the black folks that were there, they're like, wow, this is so progressive. Kara Walker's so progressive. She's so amazing, right? But no, this is where we're at. This is the high art world, right? And then this is the high education world. So when we have the high art world is racist, the high education world is racist, the blogsphere is racist, right? This is racist. This cat puppeteering black culture and making and creating millions of black ratchet memes and stuff like that. The whole ratchet meme world, they're capitalizing on it. And then DJ Vlad's capitalizing off of him capitalizing off of it, right? And like I was saying before, like, is there any Russian intervention in hip hop? We don't know. But that's a whole nother investigation I'll do in the future, right? So let's go to the New York Post. Jessica Krug's family thinks she skipped her mom's funeral to avoid getting caught. Now, this is really sick behavior. She's a really sick person. She would skip her own mom's funeral to avoid getting caught. Maybe her mom had beef. Maybe they had beef with each other. Maybe they had some, falling out, some serious beef, and she's not even going to her mom's funeral. But but her family never knew of any type of beef. So that's what this article is about. Her family thinks that she was so deep undercover that she didn't want to lose her whole career over going to her mom's funeral. So she's placing money over family. She's acting like an animal, right? She's a sick person, right? So Jessica Krug's family thinks she skipped her mom's funeral to avoid getting caught, right? That's despicable, right? Now we're going to start to read some, so I'm going to read this real quick. So Jessica Krug skipped her own mother's 2013 funeral, and now family members are suggesting the college professor was a no-show because she didn't want to get caught pretending to be a black woman. It's a terrible thing to do. She didn't even offer any sort of excuse for skipping a memorial for Sherry Krug, who died at 65 in Albany after a bout of pneumonia, a family friend told Daily Mail. And maybe we know why. I'm not aware of anyone in the family having had any contact with her ever since, right? So that's how deep undercover she was, right? She was deep undercover. So it's like that level of undercoverness sounds like, that sounds pretty serious. It sounds almost like some type of agent, right? All right, so now let's go to the next thing, all right? So we're going to go to, let's go to over here, this article right here. So this article was written by, let's see, this he's not my Facebook friend, but he's a friend of a friend, Casey Gain. Shout out to Casey Gain for writing this article. So I'm going to go through some of what he wrote. And this is an experience he had with her. I called her out on it, and whoops. Let's go to the top. When I saw the headlines that Jessica Krug, a.k.a. Jess La Bombalera, an esteemed professor of history at George Washington University, was in fact a Caucasian woman who had posed as a Afro-Latina woman for her entire career, I was not surprised at all. I'm a pretty active Facebook user. I have a wide variety of friends, both personal colleagues in media and academics. I enjoy friendly debate here and there. In 2016, Bob Dylan was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature for let me finish what I was reading. I enjoy friendly debate here and there. Political issues, hip-hop, or sports. It's rare that I remember a Facebook argument, but there was one thing that always stuck with me. So let's go into that. Now, in 2016, Bob Dylan was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature for having created new poetic expression within the great American song tradition. As a longtime fan, I was pretty happy about this. When acclaimed author Keith posted on Facebook that Dylan did not deserve the prize, I posted a comment disagreeing with him, touting Dylan's long history of social commentary and dedication to the civil rights movement. Out of the blue, I was verbally attacked by someone with a peculiar Facebook name, Jessica La Bombalera, a totally fake name. She claimed that Dylan was an old, irrelevant white man who had nothing to do with the modern-day protests in the streets. She told me that the kids protesting the streets weren't playing Dylan, but Future and Migos, who were more relevant to the protest. She said that the Nobel Prize should have gone to a woman of color. All right. So let's go a little bit farther down, right? Okay. I tried to defend Dylan by pointing out that he had made songs like Blowing in the Wind and the Times Are Changing, but that directly relates to the situation today, and that Dylan addressed police brutality and racial profiling in his song Hurricane, and Jess took this as an opportunity to attack me personally. I wasn't a real revolutionary person of color. So this is what I mean about the Russian thing. We know that Putin wants black people to partake in sedition, right? So for the record, you know, I'm no way with sedition. You know, I'm not a Black Lives Matter person. I'm not with sedition. You know, I believe in the rule of law. I don't believe in anarchy, right? And she's, you know, the same thing that Putin is promoting through their bots. The Putin bots are trying to get black people to, you know, revolt and burn down their cities so that Russians can come in and bring their troops in. So, you know, if she is an agent for somebody, most likely she would be a Russian agent. She has, her students say she has a hammer and sickle tattoo on her, right? All right, you know, and that's probably just part of her cover. But yeah, she said she's not a real revolutionary person of color. And also person of color is a backward term too, because, you know, if you look up in the legal handbooks, color or colorable means that you are lying or you're tainted. Color means tainted in legalese. So a person of color, you should never call yourself a person of color because, you know, a judge is going to look at that as you saying you're a liar or you're a person of taint or you're a person of inauthenticity. So colorable is something that is, you know, can be wrong, can be off, or might have a lie within it, right? Now, if I respected an old irrelevant white man like Bob Dylan, I told her my background, that my father was a black man from Jamaica, and my mother was Caucasian, anti-apartheid activist from South Africa. She then attributed my respect for Dylan to my whiteness and questioned my white mother's motives fighting apartheid in South Africa. She went on to try to out-black me by telling me how many Black Lives Matter protests she had attended. She asked me how many protests I had taken part in. When I told her none, that I was a journalist and author who wrote the book Inside the CIA's Secret War in Jamaica and wrote protest music, she trashed my book and music as being irrelevant. So obviously we see here that she's just looking for conflict and looking to keep her cover, right? And she's keeping her cover by being super extreme, super aggro, right? Now, so it's not often that I check a person's page during a disagreement on Facebook, but I had to find out who this person was, who had the audacity to question my blackness. Jess La Bambalera had some sort of revolutionary symbol as her profile picture. I never met a Latina woman who was called Jess. They would usually go by Jessica. I'd also never heard of any Latinos calling themselves La Bambalera. It seemed like a wrestling name that an upper-class Caucasian woman from Scarsdale would use. So on her page, I found out that Jess La Bambalera's real name, Jessica Krug. I saw a picture where she looked like a Caucasian Jewish woman with a tan, and as a biracial man with many biracial friends, I have a good eye for identifying my biracial brothers and sisters. She wasn't one of them. When I Googled her last name, Krug, I didn't find any Afro-Latinas but Ashkenazi Jews with that name. The picture, the last name, and her overcompensating for her blackness let me know one thing. This woman was not black, not Latina, not even biracial. This was a full-fledged Caucasian woman. So this is a picture of her. This is what she really looks like. And you see she, you know, adds some stuff to her hair and stuff like that, teases it up. And yeah, so she's been masquerading as a black person this whole time. Just like, you know, if you look at, for those who remember the, learning about the Tea Party, not the modern Tea Party, but the actual Boston Tea Party, when the Caucasian people, you know, put on blackface and acted like they were natives, acted like they were Aboriginal people, and they threw the tea in the water, you know. So there's a long history of property theft, identity theft. You know, identity theft is part of white supremacy. So that's kind of what this is about, is that, you know, this isn't just a new thing. This isn't, she's not an outlier. White's identity theft is key to white supremacy, and we don't know how many of these Rachel Dolezals and Jessica Krugs and Sean Kings are out there. There could be thousands and thousands of these people, right? All right. I called her out on it and told her she wasn't a person of color. She claimed that she was 100% Afro-Latina and derided me for being half white. At this point, Keith Lemons threatened to delete the thread over fear of a racial identity war, right? So, you know, so he got attacked by her. Now I'm going to go to some other friends that also got attacked by her. And let me see. Let me open these up. I'm going to hit, let's see, desktop. Yeah, so I got a couple other friends. So let's see. And we're going to look at those right now. So I'm going to bring this up. These are some other Facebook friends that know her or, you know, interacted with her. So I'm opening these things up. All right. So I'm going to start first. This is a woman named Azelict S. So sis, this woman infiltrated one of my circles. I didn't know her in real life, but I watched this video and I can't believe people didn't call her out on that fake accent. All right. But so let me get to the actual one. So yeah, here we go. Here we go. This is it. So this is Erica Hamilton Vasquez. All right. I know Jessica Krug. She went by the name Jess La Bombera. She was a regular at one of my husband's gigs. We became Facebook friends, and a couple of years ago, we got into a heated exchange about cultural appropriation on Facebook. I'm fully aware of the fact that as a DJ, I make a living off of black music. I suppose one could argue that all DJs profit off of black music, which is true. Only one black person has ever tried to shame me for my love of hip-hop and soul music, and it was Jessica Krug. And yesterday, I found out that she wasn't even black, right? So it's, you know, oh yeah, you said Rachel Dolezal. Yeah, shout out to Dr. One's in the house. Yeah, just like Rachel Dolezal, exactly. So you got to think about, you know, the psychology behind this, about, you know, why would somebody want to attack black people and prove that they're black even though they're not even actually black? You know, it just shows that they're kind of just playing mind games and just messing, you know, just trying to stir tension, trying to cause, while monetizing it, right? So she got grants from the Schomburg, she got grants from all types of stuff, right? All right. Now, I remember thinking how Rachel Dolezal was a joke, which she is, but I also thought she was harmless. I was wrong. I can't speak about the experiences of a black American woman, but people like Jessica Krug are definitely dangerous, which she is. She's really smart and educated, and she was literally out here brandishing her academic pedigree to gaslight, that means to make somebody feel like they're crazy, and bully people. She was practically a local East Harlem hero. She depicted herself as an Afro-Latin woman and activist from the Bronx who earned scholarships for a PhD. She was also a published author who wrote books on African-American history. And when somebody of that stature attacks your integrity and weaponizes her intellect to manipulate people around you to believe in her, it's not just unethical, it's actually really effing evil, which is true. I totally agree. I'm also not the only person of color that she attempted to publicly shame and diminish. I know people find a lot of humor in this story, but it's actually not funny. She's a white woman from Kansas City who capitalized off of profiting from, profiting from, do I have the rest of it? No, I don't have the rest of that. But let me see, do I have another one? Let's see. All right, I think I have another one over here somewhere. But yeah, so, yeah, let me go back to where I was over here. So now we're going to look at some other articles, right? So you can see, yeah, Professor, let's see. All right, so I'm going to read this. This is Fox 2. So a professor of African and Latin American Studies who portrayed herself as black has now revealed that she's been lying. Jessica Krug, an associate professor at George Washington University, has written extensively about Africa, Latin America, the diaspora, and identity, all while claiming her own black and Latina heritage. But in an article published on Medium on Thursday, Krug revealed the truth, that she is Caucasian, right? All right, and she called herself a leech, right? So I'm gonna we're gonna go over to here. All right, she actually called herself a culture leech. All right, so let me go to this article. Let's see. All right, oops, let me go over here. All right, so yeah, this is her actual Medium. All right, so now she said, "I am not a culture vulture. I am a culture leech." So she just admitted it. She says she's a coward, right? And then she's getting a lot of publicity for this. I'm not sure if more people are buying her books, but yeah. And I don't even want to go on too long about this. I just wanted to show the relationship between her and, you know, whitewashing of black history, right? And her being a modern version of that. So it's nothing new, right? So anywhere you go, you can see right here, we got, right, this whitewashing black history. It's like, this is not what the Egyptians look like, right? The upper, and I'll put a picture of the actual upper and lower dynasties, right? You know, so this is just all, it was called anachronism, right? And this is, once again, this is Virginia Woolf posing as a Egyptian royalty, right? So we've got a history of Caucasian people nonstop, you know, acting like they're black. And lastly, we're going to talk about Egyptomania. And Egyptomania, this kind of connects with Egyptomania of you know, Caucasian, I'm not going to say appropriation, but Caucasian domination and puppeteering and manipulation of black culture, right? And you see there's a whole era. Egyptomania was renewed interest of Europeans in ancient Egypt during the 19th century, right when slavery was ending, right? As a result of Napoleon's Egyptian campaign, 1798 to 1801, and in particular as a result of the extensive scientific study of ancient Egyptian remains and culture. And let's look at this, right? And we see, look at this. This is Egypt and America hand in hand, right? So they considered America to be the new Egypt, right? Which it is, which we are, right? And look at that. So we got Judea, we got Egypt, we got America, we got France, right? So this is part of Egyptomania, right? And, you know, what she's doing kind of stems for that. We see people kissing mummies, you know, they're eating mummies, just like people are, you know, with adrenochrome, and people are, you know, eating people today. You know, a lot of people, you know, not only is cannibalism a part of white supremacy and assuming identities, but literally eating somebody to assume their identity, right? Like, so people would eat a pharaoh, they find a pharaoh, and they'd be like, hey, maybe if I eat some of his finger, I'll be rich and famous and powerful like him or something, right? So this is, and look at this whitewashing of black history, right? We got the Sphinx again, and they've made it, you know, they've whitewashed the Sphinx, right? And, you know, we've got the mummies, and they would, you know, literally pick apart the mummies, right? All right, so yeah, that's to wrap it up. We're going to listen to her fake accent one last time.
You know, some of the white girls who do get arrested, in and out like nothing. Guess who's staying? Guess who's standing outside in the rain for hours, zip tied, no water, no access to anything. So y'all want to act brand new? Y'all want to act shocked? We can reform. We can do this. Vote people in. Vote people out. Bro, it's been that. The last time there was a curfew in New York City, it was because black people in Harlem were standing up for one of our own being killed by the NYPD. And I do not want my great-grandchildren out here having to protest this same shit. So you know what it is. You got to defund the NYPD, not just defund it, abolish it. Abolish the police. The police are a colonial occupation force. If this city is for us, the NYPD can't stay. If it's to protect all these gentrifiers, all these corporate interests, then you know what it is, and you're going to stay doing what you're doing. And how the fuck you trying to pass a load of laws to tell people to follow the laws that are already there? Like, okay,
so enough of her. We're about to end this lecture. And I'm ending this lecture on, this is actual King Tut. This is King Tut's actual face. And look at this. This is a face of a black man. And then look what they try to be like, oh, look, his nose was way longer and way skinnier. But anybody that's an artist can tell, like, this cat looks like the guy from that show last night. What's it called? You know, I was just talking about Lovecraft Country. He looks like this guy almost looks like the father, or not the real father, but you know, the guy that plays, you know, the father of the main character, right? Like if you look at this is a black person. You could say like, oh, the nose settled over time and it started to mummify and get smaller. But obviously, you know, we can see these features. If this person had a hoodie, if this person had a hat on, he had a brim hat on, he was walking around the street, you would not say this is, you know, a Caucasian person, right? All right. So we can see this is actual King Tut, and this is the actual them trying to, you know, whitewash, you know, making the nose super long like that, right? When before we had the actual, let's see, we've got the actual sculpture of, let's see, where's the actual sculpture? I think it's right over here. Where was that SETI thing? We got the actual sculpture right here where we can see this is the whitewash version and this is the, you know, regular version, right? This is the actual version that they actually crafted in that dynasty, right? And you see how they try to extend the nose out super long, like, no, the Egyptians aren't black. So they're constantly trying to take our history from us. And ending on that note, they're constantly trying to take our history from us, and just be aware that this is an outlier. There's a million more Rachel Krugs. There's a million more Jessica Krugs out there, and this is a movement. It's not an outlier. So you might have, you know, Jessica Krugs in your own life that you don't even know about, that are, you know, implementing policies in your life and changing things. So, you know, shout out to those students that originally, you know, exposed her to where she had to expose herself. All right, peace, everybody.